Hello and welcome to Every Day is Saturday, and I'm your host, Paul Gebhard, with our special guest today, Brad Gatto of Fiat Wealth Management. Welcome to the show, Brad.
Thank you, sir.
It's so good to see you again. We've talked a lot. We've had a lot of things in common in our backgrounds, and Midwestern boys. You were born in Iowa, me in Illinois. Cornfields, lots of small towns, but good memories.
Yeah, other than, you got a couple more gray hairs than I do.
A couple. Funny thing is, I only got a couple hairs, period.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? So listen, I wanted to get, one of the previous shows, we had talked about taxes, and folks do wonder, I know it's on their minds.
Yeah.
But then we also get questions, wow, we have a lot of conversations around taxes. And you've made an incredible point that I think folks really need to hear again, and I'm going to share it with them if you don't mind.
Sure.
Is the different products or different things, and whether it's your fund or in your 401k or whatnot, the difference in interest can be a half a point or 1 point, not the argument. But the biggest chunk that could really affect that overall nest egg is the tax chunk, right?
Yeah.
So resolutions, ideas to solve these types of issues.
Yeah, it's something that I'm passionate about because my industry, like every industry really, you talk about outcomes, and in previous shows we've talked about this idea of kind of putting together a set of blueprints for a family that's specific to them, custom home building, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, even if I was an actual architect and you hired me to build your home, I got to buy product to do it.
Right.
Right? And in a sales environment, I understand that it can be uncomfortable at times, and that people bring bias to the table. Just is what it is. Nobody's born with a bias.
Good point.
But we all develop them over time.
For some reason or another, right?
Absolutely. And I get the uncomfortableness, right? Sometimes sitting down with a financial advisor or a stockbroker or an insurance agent or whatever it can be uncomfortable. In fact, to the point where it's almost like that feeling you get when you and your wife finally decide you're going to go buy the new car, and
that happened recently.
Perusing, and you stick to the edges of the lot on purpose, and you're kind of hoping to be incognito. But the guy kind of spies you from the office, and he starts to walk towards you. Do you get a positive feeling or a negative feeling?
Me? I'm a strange person. Typically, it would be a negative, but I'm the opposite. I go right for the guys because I love giving them a hard time. But that's me.
Well, maybe we should have set this up better because I anticipated you saying something different.
No, but I understand.
But for most people,
yes,
it's not a positive feeling, right? Yeah. And so you come to sit down with an advisor, and a lot of times you end up at the end of that rainbow, and it's product.
Yes.
And, I have tools in my trade just like everybody does, right? Just like a general contractor does. He's got a hammer, he's got saws, he's got drills, he's got other tools, and they all come in at different points, and they all make sense at different points of the process of building your home. And it's no different with what we do.
Yeah.
What I attempt to do, Paul, I'm human.
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody at Fiat Wealth Management is human.
Yeah.
But what we genuinely attempt to do is, first and foremost, find out if the client has any bias. If there's any tools of our trade that they just don't like for whatever reason, or that they love for whatever reason. Very important step in the process, quite frankly, because if you have a negative bias towards something, and I feel it's in your best interest as a fiduciary, I'm required to do what is in your best interest. And after explaining that specific tool of my trade to you, it's still a bridge too far. That's fine.
Yeah.
We can go to the next best recommendation. But typically how people feel is that the bias all exists on my side of the table.
Yeah.
Right? And that we come to the table with pre-built suppositions, what we're trying to get done, products we want to sell to you, and these sorts of things. And I'll just tell you this, that if you ever, if you're out there watching the show and you ever hear an advisor or an insurance agent or somebody like that say that this particular product is good or that this particular product is bad, they're showing you their bias. Right? Especially if they use words like always and never.
Yeah.
If you were sitting at my dinner table or in my conversations with my wife, Paul, you'd realize very quickly that I can't stand the words always and never because the logical side of my brain knows that whatever's coming next is not true.
Yeah.
Because always and never are just not a thing.
Right.
And people that have those opinions are bringing a bias to the table that's going to skew the recommendation to the client. And so I look at the tools of our trade the way I would look at the car buying experience and saying, well, if you're 35 years old and you have 5 kids living with you, you probably need a minivan of some sort. Okay, not the coolest of all vehicles, but practical to the hilt.
They can be cool,
right? Whereas if you're 45 years old and single and going through a midlife crisis, you probably have the opinion that minivans are terrible. Sure.
Yeah.
For you,
exactly.
You know, you need the little BMW convertible thing to get you through your midlife crisis. But at the end of the day, there is no such thing as good product. You know, and there's no such thing as bad product.
Yeah, I want to take a point that you made about the house building and get people to look at this another way.
Yeah.
So let's say you build this beautiful blueprint on this custom house you want to do. And you hire this contractor. And the contractor puts your house together. You go in, you slam the door, and the entire thing falls down. And you go, what the heck happened? Well, I didn't want to push any nails or screws or anything on you.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, they do serve a purpose.
Sure.
And that's where open dialogue comes in.
Yep.
To discuss these things.
Yeah.
And then build it around listening to the client, right? Starting with that and finding out what it is they want to achieve. And I know that's something that's very important to you at Fiat.
Yeah, well, and when it comes to product, the other thing is whether it's individual stocks or mutual funds, ETFs, insurance-based products, buffered stuff, whatever it is, right? There's all kinds of things. They're not good and they're not bad. My job, as I see it, Paul, isn't to sell you on a specific product. It's to educate you on what it can do and what it can't do.
Yes.
And then let you decide if that's what you want.
Yes.
And that's the outcome that you're seeking. Yes. And so that's why we focus so heavy on the education side, because if I can empower you to make your own decisions, and I get pushback, right? Some clients go, you know what, Brad, I just trust you and I just want you to do it. Okay, we can do that. I still, unfortunately, make them go through the education because I just think it's important that they know. But at the end of the day, it's all about empowering them to make decisions.
And I think that is the importance of education and the approach, right?
Yeah.
We're talking the difference in trying to sell versus helping you purchase.
Yeah.
And that's what we're really talking about here, right? And I think that's powerful, right? And it starts again with listening. That's what I believe. Listen, I understand today you have something very special you would like to share with the viewers.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we love the education so much and because we love the opportunity to educate people, what we've done is we've set aside a handful of time slots over the next couple of weeks with members of the Fiat team for you to take advantage of a complimentary visit. And in that complimentary visit, it's an opportunity for us to get acquainted and begin down that educational process and talk through the questions that you have. Specific things that we get into a lot are taxes, trying to figure out long-term tax liability and things of that nature, the income planning stuff, the obvious things like investments. But at the end of the day, it's just about figuring out what type of custom home you want to build. And so you can use the number on the screen if you want to take advantage of that. The number is 844-726-9116.
Wonderful stuff. Again, that number to reach out for your complimentary visit is 844-726-9116. We got to take a brief break, so stay with us, won't you?
As a good saver, you've been putting away money during your working years. Studies find that the biggest fear of retirees is running out of money. Market volatility isn't just a downward movement of stock prices, it's the size and frequency of change. The more dramatic the ups and downs, the higher the volatility. This can put savers who are newly retired or a few years away from being retired at greater risk. Today's generation of retirees is not receiving traditional pensions as our parents or grandparents did. Instead, we have retirement accounts such as 401ks or 403bs. These accounts typically expose your money to market risk. The last thing you want right before retirement is to lose a portion of the money you need for income. But how do you turn these accounts into a retirement income? Is it safe to keep all your retirement money sitting in the stock market? The last thing you want is to lose a portion of the money you need for income due to market loss. By working with a financial professional, you can learn how to turn a portion of your savings into an income stream for life and income for the life of your spouse if you're married. We all have moments in our lives when we wish we had taken action sooner. Don't let procrastination reign on your retirement parade. Act now before it's too late. Please call our office to set up your no-cost, no-obligation obligation retirement income review today.
Welcome back to Every Day is Saturday, and I'm your host, Paul Gebhardt, with my good buddy here, Brad Gatto of Fiat Wealth Management. And we've talked about a great deal of stuff, again, from taxes to the differences in the products that are available to people to help them solve the issues that they face. But you mentioned something that I really believe I think it's the answer to all of our problems, really. I think it all begins and ends with education.
Yeah.
And what I wanted you to do, if you would, share with the viewer what the process of education looks like at Fiat.
Yeah. I think it's worth starting with a little bit of backstory of kind of how I tick, which is what helped define. I'm not the only person at Fiat that helped define our process by any stretch. A lot of wonderful people around me as well. Teams are important. In fact, I am much more of a team player than I'm an individual sport type person. But with that being said, I'm always in every circumstance, Paul, I'm the guy that says, just tell me all my options. I just want to know what all my options are.
Yeah.
And then I'll pick something. Mm-hmm. In fact, if you knew me really well, like if you were a friend of mine or the people around me in my life, they all know me as kind of a quick starter. If my group of friends that I hang out with all the time want to go on a vacation, they know that they can kind of ping me because I'm the one that will just book it. Once I make my decisions, I make them quickly. But once I get all that education first, right, I just want to know what all my options are. And so with that in mind, we developed a process at Fiat that mirrors that. I don't think my job is to tell people what to do. I think my job is to educate them on what their options are so that they can feel empowered to make their own decisions. And so we've developed a process that's highly educational. And quite frankly, Paul, if we get accused of anything, it's for being really slow.
Well, and I think that serves well when we talk about people's entire retirement, right?
Yeah,
that's what we're talking about.
It's important. You get one shot at it, right?
Yep.
And so you want to put something in place from the beginning that's at least going to get you pointed to a true north, whatever that is for you. My industry uses the word plan a lot. We talk a lot about written plans. But at the end of the day, the second I print out that piece of paper and I hand it to you, it's old.
That's a good point.
Especially these day and age, right? Everything gets old quickly. But life is not lived on a spreadsheet. We know that.
Yep.
And we're never on plan A year from now. I mean, if this pandemic has taught us anything, it's that plans are hard.
That's so
right?
true. So
and
true.
You get a year or two down the road and you're on plan F.
Yeah.
So what's important isn't in those finer details a lot of times in the beginning of the process. What's important is defining what your true north is so that we have a compass to go back to at all times. And as we visit over time in our process, we can always go, okay, well, this was the true north, and where have we strayed, or have we strayed, and what can we be doing to update that? So on the front end, Paul, what we do is we just spend a ton of time getting to know you as a person, right?
Okay.
Because money is one of those things, Paul, where you didn't save it just to have it. Right? People, they make fun of me in my office all the time because I'm a big analogy guy. I have analogies for everything. And then I have certain sayings that I just say on repeat.
Dude, I'm telling you what, you're like a 25-year younger version of me. I'm telling you right now. Go ahead.
But one of those things that I say all the time is people don't save a pile of money to have a pile of money.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They save it for a specific purpose or for an outcome, and we've all got those ticker tape kind of thoughts that go in our head of what we want, right? This ideal life that we want to live, and that's kind of that whole every day is Saturday mantra. Is that's what we want to help you do, is figure out how to live your life like every day is Saturday.
Yeah.
Well, in order to do that, Paul, I can't start with product. I got to start with education and getting to know you. So we spend a couple of visits up front identifying if it even makes sense, right? And so the prospective client is interviewing us, but we're interviewing them too, because at the end of the day, we're not the right fit for everybody. And so both of us have to make the decision of, does it make sense to partner together?
Yeah.
It's a marriage. It really is. And it's a really important decision and shouldn't be taken lightly, who you choose to entrust as your educator for your financial life. And so both of us have a really important decision to make. And quite frankly, it's important from our side to work with clients that we want to work with. I have this fiduciary standard, and this is a word that gets thrown out. It's a buzzword in my industry for sure, that a lot of people like to throw out. It's just a really fancy way to say I legally have to do what's in your best interest. But I think if you take that a step further, if you and I don't get along on a very intimate level, am I really going to be able to do what's in your best interest? If I wake up in the morning, Paul, and I look at my calendar, and you're in my calendar at 1 o'clock for a visit, a service visit or whatever it may be, and I don't like you that much, I probably can't do what's in your best interest.
That's a good point. That's a really good point.
Honestly.
And that is brutally honest, which I love that.
It is. We joke around all the time because people always ask, one of the famous questions is, do you have minimums? What does that look like?
Oh, yeah.
And we don't. The minimum to get into our office is what we call the grocery store test. And the grocery store test is if I saw you in the grocery store, I was at the one end of the aisle and you were at the other, and I noticed you, but you hadn't seen me yet, do I want to walk towards you and talk to you? Or am I going to hide in the next aisle and hope that you don't see me? And if you and I don't get along on a level where I seek you out in that interaction, then it's not going to be a good long-term partnership. And so those first couple of visits are really that, to figure out if we're compatible. First date, second date kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Right? And then after that, as you're dating anybody, you start getting into more detailed questions.
Yes.
About your family and what makes you tick and what's important to you and all these sorts of things. And so add a kind of a filter of your financial life or your retirement into those lines of questioning, and we do that. And usually by the time we get to a set of blueprints, because we've used that language a lot, we're 5 or 6 visits in. And I probably honestly know more about you and your goals, dreams, and aspirations than your kids do.
It's interesting what you were saying a minute ago. I have a good friend of mine who's a doctor. Okay, and Dr. Carter, there's your plug. And Dr. Carter, I asked him, I said, Doc, what is the one thing that really bugs you most, about, working with patients? He goes, Paul, when you care about a patient and you want to help them resolve an issue and you build that plan and you put it in motion, but they won't take action. They won't put it in play. How can I help them? And
it happens to us too. It's very frustrating. We have people that, after those first couple of dates where we're kind of trying to feel this out, they decide they don't want to marry us. And there are times where it's okay, and we feel mutual about it, that it probably wasn't the best partnership. But I've definitely had times, Paul, where people walk out and it's sad because I'm just like, I know I can help them.
Exactly.
And I don't know what it was, where the interaction went sideways, but it does happen.
Listen, we got a few spots left on those complimentary visits that Brad is offering. Would you share a little bit about that for the viewer, please?
Yeah, it's exactly what we're talking about. It's just beginning that process of getting to know each other and beginning that process of education to start answering the important questions that you're already asking, and maybe other questions you don't even know to ask. Things like, are my taxes on sale? If they are on sale, how do I pay my taxes? What should I be worried about in distribution that's different from when I was growing my pile of money? And how do I enter into retirement gracefully so that I can live that everyday Saturday type lifestyle? All of those questions start to get answered through this educational process. And so setting up that complimentary visit would be that first step.
Fantastic. The number's on the screen. Just pick up the phone and give them a call. 844-726-9116. Brad and his team's there. They're available to meet with you, to get to know what your needs are. But you got to give them a call. We got to take a quick break. We'll be right back after these messages. Please stay with us.
How confident are you in your current financial plan? Do you know with certainty how the recent market volatility will affect your future hopes and dreams? How much are you paying in taxes? And how much are you losing to unnecessary high fees? You didn't work to save this money so that you could spend your time worried in retirement. Now is the time to take charge of your finances so you can feel confident about your future. Call in during the next 30 minutes of today's show only to set up an absolutely complimentary, no obligation, full-blown financial review that will result in your own customized written plan. This is a $999 value that we're giving away complimentary to the first 10 people who respond. We'll start with a full-blown analysis of what you already have by running a report to untangle how much you are currently paying in fees, how you're allocated for risk, and what it's costing to work with your current advisor. Next, we'll identify your goals. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Where do you want to go? And who do you hope to go there with? Is your current financial plan set up to get you there without mishap? Let's design a roadmap to create a financial plan you can follow with confidence. Get the piece that so many people are missing from their retirement. Find out how having a written plan can make a difference to your retirement dreams. Call now to schedule your complimentary, no-obligation, full-blown financial review today.
Well, welcome back to Every Day is Saturday, and I'm your host, Paul Gebhardt, with my good friend here, Brad Gatto of Fiat Wealth Management. And we had closed out the segment. We had a little bit there about distribution, and I don't know we've talked enough about it, but I know there's a little bit of uncertainty with people as they get to that stage. It's probably one of the biggest areas of anxiety, I think, for people is what should I take? When should I take it? You know, all of those things, right?
Yeah. Well, and I get it, the anxiety, because you get one shot. Right?
It's a big deal,
And it can be very confusing. And I don't want to take anything away from the idea of saving money and what goes into that and how the complexity of that. But at the end of the day, you're just kind of whatever you can, you're putting away, and you're letting it grow at whatever rate it's going to grow. And in a lot of ways, there is some simplicity to that. And then you're tasked with this idea when you retire of you got to take that pile of money and you got to turn it into a paycheck. And you have to avoid market losses if at all possible. You have to figure out, is it going to last long enough? You know, how long am I going to live? And how does this interact with my other sources of income I have coming in the door, things like Social Security or pensions? If I want to leave money behind, how do I do that? There's just a lot of decisions to be made. And unfortunately, Paul, my experience has been because of the fears associated, people don't spend it. So they've envisioned for years this retirement where they're going to do all these things and they're going to travel and they're going to go see the grandkids and they're going to do whatever it is that they want to do, get the new house that they wanted. And then they get to retirement and they don't do any of those things because they don't know if their pile of money is going to last. And so out of that fear, they're frozen. And it's unfortunate. And so one of the things we try to focus on is alleviating the fear and just answering those questions and finding ways inside of their situation to get rid of those fears that empowers them to do the things that they want to do. Because at the end of the day, Paul, once you've saved the pile of money, there's only two things you can do with it. You either spend it on your fun and lifestyle or somebody else is going to spend it on theirs.
That's the truth.
So
no, absolutely.
You spend it or you give it away.
Yep.
You know, and I don't think anybody has envisioned a retirement where they live in fear for decades of what their money situation is going to look like and then don't put a plan together. So ultimately that pile of money ends up in their kids' hands, but the kids aren't actually the largest benefactor. It ends up being the IRS because no plan was put in place. In fact, in previous shows, you and I have talked, because we live in the Minneapolis area, you're a big Prince fan. He's the extreme example.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a minute, dude. I'm so glad you brought that up. How can I forget Prince? I'm sorry. Look, Prince got me through a tough time in my life. And this is why it's a powerful thing for me, because when my mother passed away on my 15th birthday, it was a whole it's hard to explain to people. You can't explain it. It's like childbirth, same thing. You have a kid, hard to explain to people. You got to go through it. When you've lost a parent, there's nothing like it, especially when you're young. And literally what I had to get me through my teenage years was the music of Prince. That music literally got me through my teenage years. And so when I heard that he didn't have an estate plan.
Yeah, unfortunately he didn't. He had nothing, and I don't know how long it's been since he passed away, but there's still
5 years.
Yeah, well, there you go. there's still arguments going on. So nobody envisions that. That's not what anybody wants.
No.
Right? They want to live that stress-free, anxiety-free retirement. They don't want to wake up and look at the news and be worried about what the president's doing or not doing. They don't want to be worried about what's going on in the stock markets. They don't want to do any of that stuff.
No.
They just want to live.
Right.
I mean, you didn't work 40 plus hours a week for 4 decades so that you could get to retirement and just have anxiety around all of these other things. And so figuring out a way to turn that pile of money into a paycheck and whatever it is that you want for a paycheck is really important. Unfortunately, it can be very complex. because you've got all these factors that we already discussed some of, like the longevity factor. Of course, if you could tell me, Paul, the day you're going to die, that would answer a lot of questions.
Yeah,
and we could just kind of reverse that backwards
Make
and
it a lot easier.
get that figured out.
Yeah.
If you could guarantee me you'd never lose a dime in the stock market, that would make the planning a lot easier.
Yeah, no
right?
doubt.
And if you could tell me exactly when you were going to turn your Social Security on and all these things, it would make the planning a lot easier. Unfortunately, those things aren't reality, but the good news is there are ways to plan for it. Right? There are things that you can do, specific things that you can do to alleviate those fears, create paychecks that you're comfortable with. I like to call them airbags. Put airbags around your paychecks just to make sure that it comes in the door.
That's cool.
And so we focus heavily on that in our planning process.
I love that. I love that a lot. I mean, it's interesting what we're talking about, these different topics of all the stuff. And we talk about money, and we talk about the daunting things in money and taxes and inflation and pandemics. Yeah. But I think what we're really talking about here is the power in people, the power in caring for people, and how there is hope. There's always hope.
Yeah.
Even when you feel like, you know what? What's the use? Stock market took a dip. I lost money. Not even going to open that statement.
Yeah.
But truly, that's the moment to take action. Right?
Yeah, well, hopefully before that.
Well, yeah.
Hopefully before that. There can be a lot of fear around money, of course, and I don't want to lead with fear, and frankly, I think that's what we try to avoid or help people avoid is that fear component.
Yeah.
But money is one of those things, Paul, where you can't separate it from anything in your life. It impacts everything in your life, for good or for bad.
Yeah.
Right? And like anything in life, you can't have good without bad. The word good can't exist without the word bad. And money is one of those things that can have that extreme effect, one way or the other. And so giving purpose to it and outcomes to what you want, and then chasing after those, and not focusing in on the things that my industry, quite frankly, has taught you to focus in on, which is chasing rate of return or the actual number that you have. Remember those commercials where people are walking around with their number?
Yeah.
To me, it's just the wrong thing to be looking at.
Yeah. We're coming to the end of the show. What Brad and his team wants for you is they want your every day to be your Saturday. Every day your Saturday. That's what this is about. Call 844-726-9116. There's a few spots left for that consultation. We want to thank you for being with us. Take care, everybody.